person with me or at home or on Zoom, and now I'm still talking to her. So I found a poem that captures that feeling and connection that I think a lot of us have with her. And she answers me sometimes too. This is called Death is Nothing at All. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute, unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you. For an interval. So I am but waiting for you for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
Hi, everybody. What an honor this is to speak about Fran. She was a brilliant, passionate seeker in life, and I was just blown away by her breadth of knowledge, and even more than that, her curiosity that seemed endless. Her ability to find ways to heal herself was also remarkable and taught us, as was suggested in her 6 books that she generously offered. She was a woman of fierce truth, a seer and a rescuer, and most of all, her compassion and forgiveness and empathy were so imprinted in her heart. She learned to say, "What happened to you?" instead of "What's wrong with you?" She spoke about a Bunto, a belief in an African tribe she read about, and it means I am because we are. And Bando, a forest of trees that is really only one big tree called a clonal grove, all connected. In our very frequent emailing during her last year, I learned so much about her huge capacity for love and how she carried this we-ness and the coming to the table we-ness so deeply in both her heart and her mind. And I'm going to miss her so much. Her courage during this last year and her ability to pull herself up time after time, whether it's a dog, you know, that she gets to sit outside even when her life is so crappy with her body, that she just got joy from that dog licking her and being outside in the sun. I mean, she is such a role model for all of us. So, Fran, thank you. We will miss you. I will never forget you. I will never forget our friendship. Thank you.
There's so much we all could say about Fran. I wasn't done with her. Nobody here was done with her. And I realized after she transitioned that she's not done with me. She's still here. The thing about Fran is every time we connected, I learned something about Fran. But every time we connected, I learned something about me too. And I'm still learning about me through Fran, through the gift, her parting gift, literally parting gift of calling me into service through her last weeks. Fran was extraordinary. And I want to thank her for still showing up. And guiding and still giving. But I hope you're receiving all of this back, Fran. I hope you're receiving all of this back. It's not going to stop.
Some of you were on the Zoom that we had on Fran's birthday and have heard me say this. So I want to do a few things here in a very short time. What I said on the Zoom for Fran's birthday was that every time I got together with Fran, I learned more about Fran, but I also learned more about me.
Right.
And that was who Fran was. My husband Paul and I came to the Fran party late. We started having the beautiful experience of Fran in our lives. I think it was around 2018 when we joined Coming to the Table Santa Monica. And I've heard stories about Fran from before that time. I think when we met Fran, her body was starting to shift more into a teacher role than a friend role, if you will, right? Like she was going through a lot of physical challenges. And so when I was thinking about this today, I thought, I know not everybody is speaking, but everybody has a thought about Fran. Or when you think of Fran, there's an expression that comes to your mind. And I just want to, after I say one more thing, invite everybody to just share in 2 or 3, or not more than 5, in respect of the time, words of who Fran is, so that all of our voices can be part of this today. The one thing I want to share first is that Paul and I were in Santa Fe in May, and I picked up a magnet for Fran that said, "You are deeply loved." And there was an image of a crow on it. And circumstances, including COVID and other things, I didn't see Fran from when we got home until we were supposed to have dinner with her the night after she went into the hospital. But by then it was too late, and I was going to give her that magnet with the crow on it that said, "You are deeply loved." And when I stepped out of my home this morning to walk down to the car to come here, there was a crow waiting at the end of the hallway. And I just looked, I was just hanging out, and I just looked at it and said, "Hi, Fran. We're all going to celebrate now. Hi, Fran." So she's here. When I think of Fran, I think of a curious seeker. And if anybody wants to add their voice to what they think of when they think of Fran briefly, I'd love to have those voices in the room. Am I pointing? Yes.
Do I have to stand up?
No.
Good. Well, as you were speaking, I saw the whole thing the first time that I ever saw Fran, right? So a group of us went to see a movie called, remember?
The movie or something.
In any case, it doesn't really matter.
The one with, that one.
No, the other one.
With who was also married to, but yeah.
But it was in an area, I guess you call it so central. Anyway.
Magic Johnson.
It might have been. Yeah, probably was. So anyway, Fran was saying, see where that gray part of the house is where those igloos are? She was just standing there, and she had a shawl, very calm. And this is what I remember, very calm. And I was attracted to her, not because we look alike, we were from the same ancestry, but because of her energy that was so calm. Because I'm not calm. I mean, I can be, I'm learning to be, but I'm and she was so calm and listening. I walked over to her and I said, you remind me of some of my cousins. That was how I learned. And she said, oh. And then I probably went off on a tangent talking because that's what I do when I'm nervous. But she would just listen. And I thought, I didn't do that. Yeah. And I've been working on it, and I'm doing very well.
So it's her calm. It's her calm. Yeah. Yes. We're good with this? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, yeah.
What I remember the most about Fran was how
Truthful.
Truthful.
She didn't put on airs. She didn't pretend to be anything other than she was.
Everybody
She
speak
was-
up a little
okay,
bit. I'm
she
seeing
was-
strained ears in the back over there.
She was extremely honest. And I just remember in our race relay circles that when she spoke, it came from here. And she was just dead honest. And I just remember the courage that at least for me, it would have taken a lot of courage. She was just being herself. And I remember I loved it because she didn't sugarcoat. She just said what was the truth. And if it was stunning, if it was shocking, oh well. And I just remember her sitting there, her legs crossed, her arms crossed, and she just said what was so. And I was like, whoa. That's my first impression of her.
Beautiful.
calm, curious, honest, courageous.
Yeah.
Couple of words. Anybody else? Christina.
When you asked the question, what came to my mind was anchor.
Anchor.
She was solid. And,
Anchor.
not anger.
Yes.
Anchor.
Anchor.
Holding us down. I mean, not down negative, just grounded. And I always appreciated that.
Denise.
Along those lines, I said it in the Zoom. She was a gentle warrior.
Yes.
And we shared a lot on emails because she would always send me information about what she was planning to bring into the coming to the table presentations. I would share with her some of the things that I had been doing with Race Relay, and soon it became just sharing anything of joy. And last night I was going through all the emails, trying to get rid of all the political stuff that's coming in my way and tweets and everything. And there, since March, were a number of emails from Fran just sharing some lovely things that I just never got around to see. And one of the things she loved was animals and dogs. And there was a video of a couple with their dogs that were their children. And that the couple dressed up their dogs in the same outfits that they wore. And she said, "Isn't this wonderful?" And I just had to smile because, you see, that was Fran.
Yeah.
She would send stuff that, just touched your heart. At the same time, she'd send and I'd send stuff to look at people. Life is beautiful. It's too bad people mess it up.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of thing that we did. We shared those things, and just running across all these emails that I never got to open.
And you've got that history now,
And I've
which
got
is great.
the
I have
more.
all of mine too.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I know some other people are going to be speaking more. Some of the people who aren't going to be.
Hi, I'm Bonnie, and some of you may have heard of a group of longtime friends that Fran had gathered called Stone Crones.
Yep.
I think of Fran as a community builder. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate from the Zoom call and from today, seeing some of the other communities of coming to the table and the race relay, because we were aware that was out there. Even in a friendship setting, we could see how much everything you said about her was brought into being. And so I was kind of a newcomer. I was 2004, but that community, the Stone Crones, went back to people she had been in college with, people she had worked with early in her arrival in LA. I mean, it was magnificent that she maintained those connections and still it was so expansive.
You know what I'm hearing in all of this? You know how some of us are different with different people?
Yeah.
Right?
She's always the same.
Fran was always the same, right? All these different communities of people coming together. Very grounded.
But she knew who she
And
was.
so she
That's
did.
the difference. Most of us don't.
Who said that? Tony.
Altruistic,
Giving and selfless.
Yep. Everybody hear that?
Altruistic, giving, and
Selfless. Yep. Be where you need to be, Tone. Anybody else? Melissa.
She was wildly creative, as you all know. If you look through your emails, there are everything from A to Z. Just, and the sense of humor. You know, Josh Johnson. You know, just, I mean, we still, like yesterday, we tuned in his latest one, which was fantastic about Mark Johnson. Anyway, he's awesome. And we just remember, like, I literally was going to her house, like you were saying, having a gift for her cat, because her cat's birthday happened on a Monday.
Yes.
And we were going to go and bring this little gift, and of course, we didn't end up being able to. But I just found an email that I wrote to her on the 26th, which was the day
before she passed. She passed on 7/27, which I think it was a plane. Like she just soared up into the sky, right?
Oh, what a beautiful analogy! I love it. But she's an advanced soul. She sent me that book. What is it? Journey of Souls. And I read it. I finally opened it up and I found the chapter on advanced souls. It just was remarkably about her.
Wow.
And, you know, I think everyone would recognize that. But this little email I wrote to her the day before she flew on the 727 is, I wish I could show you when you are lonely or in darkness, the astounding light of your being. And this is Hafez.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Speaking of cats and sharing the birthday with your cat because they were siblings, this t-shirt is in honor of Nova Sage. Fran's cat, best friends, is where Nova Sage was. We took her back to Nova Sage and she was adopted the first day she became available. Paul, back there, anything you want to share?
Continuing Tony, birthday.
Okay.
Selfless.
Selfless. Lyle?
Books.
Books. Books.
She was very much a book person, and she was, and I'm a bookish man, but she was able to open up for me horizons that I had so close.
There's a t-shirt over there that says, I drink tea, I read books, that's what I do. Yeah. Paul, I'm good with this. I basically just commandeered the entire thing, but okay. Paul?
I'll have the next one because
Paul, Mother's going to say something.
there's also
Yeah, go back to the list.
I was always astounded. He was always astounded, like you were saying, about the breadth of her interest and her knowledge. And remember, we went to performance at the Hollywood Bowl. Jazz guitarist Sam.
Yeah,
something.
We'll think of that on the drive home.
Anyway, I knew this would be something that Fran would have enjoyed, so I got a YouTube and I sent it to her, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I've been listening to him for years." And for the next 6 months, every week, she'd send me another YouTube video of this jazz guitarist. It was bottomless.
Thank you, everyone. I know others are talking. Thank you for pulling this back in. Who's up next?
So, first of all, I want to express gratitude to Paul and Barbara and Emily, Andrew, and others who, when Fran went into the hospital, let us know what was going on, and for supporting Fran in so many ways during that time and following that time and in creating this gathering. As a result of that, I was blessed to be at the hospital and be with Fran when she transitioned. And I really appreciate that. My longtime friend Andrew, who is on this Zoom, brought Fran to the Mamie Clayton theatrical production of Race Relay, and that's when I met Fran. And she quickly got on board with us with Race Relay. She was the first person in the parking lot month after month, waiting for me to open the door to the building, and would come in and help me set up chairs and food and whatever else needed to be done. So I could always count on her, really appreciated her showing up in that way. And then she went on to be part of the planning committee and co-facilitated and participated thoroughly, completely, in many ways, sharing her talents with all of us over many years as a participant with Race Relay. And then when she started coming to the table, I was able to be a part of that in Santa Monica with her, and was very proud to watch her step into an expansion of her expression and bringing her many talents, of which she had many. I would always be surprised. There'd be one more thing, we would be talking and she would share one more thing, or just the vast amount of information and knowledge that she had about different things that I didn't know. So I was like a sponge oftentimes doing that. And that would also happen in our long emails that would go back and forth. When she came to Race Relay, she was just coming out of a long time of experience agoraphobia. And she, during that time following that, she ended up going to Stonehenge, getting on a plane, going to Stonehenge, being gone for, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 weeks or something. And I think she said, I'm not certain about this, but I think she said there was only one other Black person that she saw during that entire time in England, in the towns where she was doing this tour. So I watched her come out of her fear, step into her courage and go beyond that, and that was an inspiration. We had a major love of cats, and that was something that bonded us. We went back and forth with that, and she really supported my love of the tiny house movement and bought me books and sent me things with that, about that. So I will miss her physical presence, and I'm gonna close by just singing the last verse of a song that is about spirit, that part of us that doesn't change. And I'm gonna take myself off the video, but you've changed in form, crossed the veil. You're on the other side. Spirit will still guide you. Spirit will provide. For spirit is your fire. It is your delight. Spirit is the strength in you, morning, noon, and night. Never will forsake you, always being strong. Spirit is your essence. You are spirit's song. Spirit is. Spirit is. Love you, Fran.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Charlotte Bocage. I met Fran at the Pasadena group. People were wondering, who the hell are you, when I walked in? But I had been knowing Lisa
McMurray, who started the group, for more than a year. And so Lisa and I were talking. And then finally, when the group started on the correct day for me to attend, I started coming to the Pasadena group. So my note about Fran is that at the Santa Monica group that she started, I shared an experience that I had had with that group, and it was a bad experience. And Fran emailed me a nice, really wonderful email, and really, you know, it uplifted my heart and made me feel a whole lot better, because that's who she is. You know?
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to share about Fran, which I can't remember now, but anyway, that was the one thing I wanted to share. I could have brought the email, but then that would go into what had happened and all of that, and I don't want to depress anybody.
Oh, okay.
So those two things, whatever the second one was, were the things that I wanted to share about Fran.
I too got connected to Fran because I work for an organization that supports folks who have experienced any type of trauma, primarily domestic and sexual violence. And we have a blog, and Fran wrote our very first blog post about the root and symptoms of racism. Did a great art workshop around that. She also wrote another blog post that she didn't quite get to finish, but we are going to share that. And I'm actually going to read you her blog post today because this is such a beautiful Fran-munity of support. And it's entitled Support, What It Is and Why You Need It. So this is all Fran's words. I was born in 1950, a lonely, abused only child. In those days, there were no social services for children. If a child was being abused, it was the business of the family and no one else. If family, friends, neighbors, or teachers realized something was wrong, they stepped back and left the situation alone. My only recourse was to endure what was happening. There was no one to tell. No one would help. As a result, I learned to survive by hiding, by being as invisible and silent as I could. My abuser required this, and when I went out into the world, I discovered this strategy worked well to reduce the amount of bullying and racial discrimination I had to face. I went decades keeping the secret of my abuse and living with the trauma responses that evolved from it. One of those responses was avoiding relationships. I didn't feel normal. I didn't want anyone to know I wasn't. I also had trust issues that kept me from forming normal attachments to others. Not only didn't I trust them, I didn't trust myself not to do or say something weird that would reveal my lacks. I finally began to get help when I was required to see a psychotherapist as part of an integration program I was enrolled in college. The irony was the administrators of the program believed the black girls would have trouble adjusting to the white school. It didn't dawn on them that we'd spent our whole lives adjusting to a white world. It was the white girls who had emotional problems being exposed to black girls for the first time. This introduction to therapy began as a key factor in my survival. I've dealt with mental breakdowns, sexual abuse, divorce, and the death of loved ones in talk therapy. Each time I've fallen into the abyss of depression and the inability to care for myself, therapy has hauled me back to the world of the living. One of the main reasons for this is because therapy at its core is about a relationship. In the best of all scenarios, an individual and their therapist embark on a journey of uncovering wounds and healing them. It is in the therapeutic relationship that I discovered how unhealthy my past relationships have been and got the skills necessary to form healthy bonds with myself and others. I discovered that it's in relationships that we learn who we are and how we walk in the world. My healing didn't truly begin until I began to trust myself, to see any negativity in a relationship and get out of it. That trust made it possible for me to form healthy attachment bonds to others. I moved away from the denial practiced by the abused child. I was able to judge others as healthy or unhealthy based on their behavior. I no longer excused abuse, making the assumption that any attention paid to me, no matter how horrible, was normal and what I deserved. With my new self-esteem, I began to judge relationships and experiences based on whether or not they were healthy and if they made me happy. No longer hiding from others meant that I was able to share all aspects of myself and discover my value in the world. I learned about my strengths and talents, my leadership skills and abilities as a good teacher. All of this helped increase my self-esteem, and I began to practice self-compassion and self-care on a deep level. Relationships are at the core of the support system necessary for each individual to move beyond surviving to thriving. Alone, we empty the cup of who we are and therefore unable to help others or ourselves. Relationships fill us up and we're able to live in a healthy, happy way.
I met Fran through Danita. Thank you, Danita, for giving me the blessing of knowing Fran through CTTT. We met at a training in 2016 and been friends ever since. And I was a member of Pasadena and Santa Monica when I was out there with my loved one, Claire, who passed away a year ago. And I was able to go both meetings from time to time, or at least Zoom. But Fran and I talked about African drumming and African culture, and a lot to do. It's one of my areas that I have studied in my life. So this is a talking drum, and I'm going to say something in the tree language, and I'll translate it. It's Name, 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 name. I am walking. In the tree language from Ghana, it is I'm walking, I'm running, I'm running. I am learning, let me succeed. I am learning, let me succeed. It's the first thing you say on the talking drums, the Yatumpana, and then this drum. And then I'll play a little bit of Ottawa, which is a type of drumming in Ghana. Something for Fran.
I met Fran about 15 years ago when she attended a production and following race relations discussion of Race Relay that I produced with Common Peace Center for the Advancement of Nonviolence. She was an avid participant. We meet monthly and became so involved and so engaged in wanting to be a part of working with others to talk about what we have in common and overcoming the racial issues we have, that she began her own circle with Coming to the Table. And I would try to get there. At times there were conflicts of our meetings. She would try to get to my circles, I would get to hers. But we would always keep in touch. We had a plethora of information that we shared with each other. We would get all these tidbits and articles and news reports, and we'd share them, and we'd shake our heads at what was going on in the world and whether or not we were doing something about that. And
understanding that in our own small way, we were supporting each other and feeling pretty good about the fact that we were bringing people together in a circle to talk about this thing. And so over the years, it was difficult for me to get to some of the CTT events, and it was difficult for her to come to the race relay circles. And of course, her health began to get in the way, but she would always send me these amazing tidbits, poems, images that she found, and I would share the same. I couldn't believe how there was so much about her that was a gentle warrior. And it just reminded me of how we, in our own small way and in big ways, can connect to one another and do something about the awful things that are going on in this world. I used to say that the world is a lovely place and people are the things that spoil it. And we'd laugh at that. And I just want to say that as a gentle warrior, I learned from her. I think we learned from each other. Her peace and her handling of her situation with her health was certainly a lesson for me, as I am getting to the point where I need a knee replacement, and I don't want to complain about it. I want to say, I'm here, I'm doing something. She was such a fabulous spirit. I can't believe she's gone. And I'm lighting this candle on her behalf and for everyone who has been touched by her. Thank you so much, Fran.
I'm Drew, and I met Fran in 1999. She lived across the street from me. And I had a dog that I used to walk, and she had a puppy that got out. And I found the puppy and brought it in so it was protected. And she came over and she goes, "Oh yeah, that's my new dog, Pearl." And Pearl drove her crazy because Pearl was a pit bull and Pearl could pull. And Fran was like, "Why did I get another terrier?" And Fran was going through kind of a difficult period when I first met her. She was kind of in an agoraphobic period. She put on a lot of weight. She was very depressed, very unhappy. And over time, I got to see her pull herself out of that. And she had the fortitude to keep fighting through that really, really difficult period. And eventually, I saw her starting to walk. Before she was always staying in the house, she started taking walks around the block. She started really working on her diet. She started slowing down. She was smiling more. And on my street, I became like sort of the social director. So I started organizing potlucks, and Fran became a big enthusiast for the potlucks. So we usually do them every few months. No, Fran was like, "When are we doing the next potluck? When are we doing the next potluck?" I'm like, "Well, Fran, I think we have to wait, a little bit." No, you should become ready for another potluck. So one of the potlucks, she decided to make something special, and everybody loved it, but it was very unusual. Avocado pie. Oh. It was so good. It was so good. And who thought, you could make avocados into pie? Fran thought that. Yeah. She's the avocado pie queen. So Fran and I really bonded a lot over spiritual stuff. We're both into meditation and talked a lot about reincarnation, a lot of spiritual evolution kind of stuff. And she had attended some of the same spiritual path that I had been involved in. So we connected on that. And at certain points, there were like community events that Fran and I would go to. We had a big protest against a cell tower Verizon was trying to put in right near us. And so I took Fran to the community meeting. And as we're driving, it was over on Crenshaw. As we were driving to the meeting, she looks over and she looks back at me and she goes, "There's a pig on the sidewalk." And I said, "What?" And sure enough, I looked over and there's this random pig walking down the sidewalk near Jefferson and La Cienega. And we're like, "What?" It was very strange. Anyway, my friend Candace had contacted me at one point and she said, "Hey, we're going to be doing this thing called Race Relay." And she told me what it was going to be. It was the first night. And would I like to come? I said, "Oh, sure." So knowing Fran had been active in coming to the table and other, proactive groups, I said, "Hey, Fran, I'm going to this thing, Race Relay. Would you like to go?" She goes, "Yeah." So I take, and there's this beautiful circle and people doing these little vignettes to kind of educate. And then we broke up into twos afterwards and had conversation. It was very sweet. And then Fran just totally got into race relay. She started going all the time and helping organize it. So she just became, this big enthusiast. So during COVID, on my street, because my street's very connected, we put the village in Rainier Village. And so the first lockdown of COVID, we did a I Will Survive song together on the street. And then I said, that's not going to be enough, just one song. So I put a playlist of dance music together. And I pumped it out on an old Bose stereo. And we all danced in the street. That became a every Sunday event for the next 4.5 years. Wow. And Fran, even as she started having issues with her hips and knees and stuff, she came out even on a walker and danced with us. And, Fran could be very kind of, as people were saying, very still, very solid. She would call me sometimes for help with things, and she had given me keys to her house, and she said, she'd call me up and she'd be like, I'd always know it's Fran. Drew. Yes, Fran. Well, they delivered the wrong food today. Do you and your roommates want it? She goes, I know you're a vegetarian. There's some chicken here, but there's some stuff I think you... Oh, yes, I'll be there. One day, Fran calls me. It was 8:30 in the morning. I have a 9 o'clock meeting. I'm thinking, I shouldn't pick up because I've got this meeting coming up. And I'm like, oh, no. Fran never calls me at this hour. Yeah. So I pick up the phone, and it's Fran. Drew. Yes, Fran. I need you to come over and unlock my door. I'm on the floor and I can't get up. So, and I need you to call 911. So I'm like, okay, I'm calling 911 first, and I'm coming over to unlock the door. So I go over there. She'd had a stroke. So I ended up taking care of her home and her cat during that period. It was a couple months. She was, in the hospital, then in rehab, then in nursing home. And I knew that we were really good friends because she asked me to bring her bra. Drew, could you please bring my bra? Yes. That's real. That's as real as it gets. So one of the things that Fran, because she eventually, became wheelchair bound, she couldn't come out and join us anymore for the dance thing, but she told me, I'm at my desk by the window, and I look forward to you guys playing that music every week, and I dance in my wheelchair. So one day Fran said, I found a song that I want you to add to the playlist. And I said, sure. So I'm going to play, it's a short one, I'm going to play a little bit of it, because it'll show you just how diverse Fran was in her tastes. And we danced to this. Yeah. So this was Mongolian metal music. That's Fran, right? Yep. She's so diverse, so eclectic. So, I was with Barbara and Paul when Fran passed, and I have to say to you, the last day we were there for several hours, she was so serene. And we sang to her, and we talked to her, and we helped her, make transition. She was so serene. She looked so at peace. And I had a dream of her after she passed, just a couple weeks ago. And it was in her house, and she's in her house, and she's pointing, we're going through her books on her bookshelf. And I knew in the dream she had passed, right? It wasn't like she was, it wasn't before times. And she pointed to a book, and I said, "Oh, this book is in Hebrew." It was like a Hebrew prayer book. "Oh, yes." And she went into a whole thing about her Hebrew prayer book. And of course, she was born in Brooklyn and, had a lot of Jewish neighbors. So I was like, yeah, of course Fran would have a Jewish prayer book, right?
Yep.
Anyway, Fran, I think a lot of people have already said, Fran is still our friend and still with us. And, those of us who are closer to the other side, will see her soon.
I got to spend the most time with Fran around 2012 to 2014. I got to know her through A Window Between Worlds, where she was part of the Survivors Art Circle and a key leader and thought partner in the work that we did together. And I just want to lift up her leadership style. She was authentic, open, flexible, firm, powerful. She was part of a Theater of the Oppressed, in-depth training that we did together. And so I got to carpool with her. I think it was every other week, something like that. And just a little story about her boldness. One of the things I never forgot is she knew who one of my favorite authors was, which was Octavia Butler. And she not only knew about Octavia Butler, but she was so interested in her that one day she had called her up and she expected an agent or a secretary or a voicemail, and she never expected that Octavia Butler would actually answer the phone. And she didn't even know what to say because she wasn't prepared for the actual author to answer the phone. And I honestly don't remember what Fran said they talked about, but I just remember that level of boldness and curiosity and appreciation for different people's art and appreciation for ideas and creativity, a commitment to racial justice and ending racism, and to working with everybody to do that work. I also have this memory of a Survivors Art Circle, and I don't remember why it needed to happen, but for her to be able to lead in that moment, it required kind of a primal scream. And it was I'd never seen a leader be that kind of powerful and vulnerable at the same time before. And I've never forgotten that. It's been a decade since then, more than a decade. And when I lead, I carry some of the things that I learned from Fran. And when I think about how to be a whole person with other people, I think about Fran. When I think about making mistakes in cross-racial relationships and trying to correct them and reach for connection anyway, I think about my relationship with Fran. And it's so lovely that there's a virtual option to be able to care together and to hold the space together and to love her together. And I'm really glad that we get to be together, hold her in our hearts, and hold each other in community, because everything I know about Fran, even at her height of agoraphobia, is about community and coming together. And so this just feels just right. So thank you all.
So we met Fran the same time as Drew did. We bought a house in 1999 on the corner of Beverlywood and Shenandoah, which was 2 blocks from Fran's house. And a mutual friend of ours, Janie, said, wait a minute, I think a friend of mine, Fran, lives real close to you. And I said, what's her address? Oh, okay, 24th. It's 2 blocks from me, literally. So I don't remember the first time she came over, but we bonded, partly over Pearl,
Pearl was a difficult child. She had trouble with Pearl, but she loved that dog. I mean, she was not going to get rid of it. No, she could deal with it, and she did.
Yeah.
And she did.
Yeah.
One of the things that Lyle has said was Fran and books. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think she introduced us to Terry Pratchett and gave us a book. I think it was an illustration. But we now have every Terry Pratchett book known to mankind, I think. And we think of Fran every time we see those, books. I mean, he's a serious book person. And for him to meet someone who he can talk with, it's not easy. And she was that person. Another thing that Fran and I had in common was our mental health and how we were dealing with it, how we weren't dealing with it. Past, present, future. We talked about the whys and hows. And both of us appreciated the other's openness and honesty. When you have any kind of mental situation, illness, I don't like the word, but I call it a mental situation, it's hard to talk to people. If people don't know about it, if they're not, if like my family, they think I'm crazy. They just don't want to talk about it. And there's a lot of people like that. If you're sick, you can deal with it. But if your head is sick, not so much. It's getting better, I must admit. And she and I had the longest conversations about this. And I thank her for that. And I thank her for this, because as I might have told a couple people, this yard has not been really cleaned or anything for a couple years. And so everything, every table, every chair, every cushion has been cleaned. And I started getting a little pissed about it. And then I thought, thank you, Fran. She helped me clean the back. So for that, I thank her for so many things. She was a complex person. Sometimes she was a difficult person. I mean, I realize someone said this differently, but we all knew Fran differently. Some of us longer, some of us just recently, but in different ways. And I realize everyone knows somebody differently. And I love hearing the stories of how everyone knew Fran, because it will be all different. And what I think is that we all have pretty good memories of someone that was on this earth for 74 years.
How calm and serene that Fran was and could be. But I remember an occasion where she was startled. And Karen, my wife, is devoted to whimsy. And we had some kind of get together at the house, and Fran was there, and there was one of the tables. There was I don't know what they call it, a multi-level tray with different
Like a tea tray.
Like a tea tray with different little foods on it. And Fran sauntered over and picked up an olive and popped it in her face, and was surprised to discover that Karen had found chocolate olives, and the olive that Fran thought she was popping in her mouth, they looked exactly like an olive, and she got a little chocolate, and it just woke her up.
Hello, everyone. I'm in my car. I've stopped so I could give this tribute to Fran. I'm sorry I've missed a few. I'll look forward to catching the YouTube video. Thank you all so much. So Fran was true to her name. She was, for F, she was a fierce fighter for justice. Get my glasses off a second. So for Fran, fierce fighter for justice. For R, she practiced radical love. She was authentic, altruistic, and an ardent supporter of coming to the table and coming to the table members. And she was neoteric, noetic, nurturing, and numinous. And so neoteric includes someone who's innovative, creative, forward-thinking, always seeking new and exciting ideas and ways of doing things, cutting edge and visionary, all the things Fran was. Noetic is that people have a deep understanding of intellectual and spiritual matters. They're wise, thoughtful, and introspective, and they're deeply reflective and have a strong connection to their inner self, which Fran did. Numinous is that they are awe-inspiring or spiritual, deeply connected to something greater than themselves, whether it be a higher power, nature, or the universe, or animals. And the person is thoughtful, introspective, and contemplative. And Fran was all of these and more. On September 3rd, 2021, Fran sent out a poem entitled I, in which she revealed parts of her trauma. And one thing that helped her on her healing journey was finding a picture of her infant self, which I think was shown earlier, falling in love with her, and teaching herself to say, "Don't hurt the baby." This inspired me to write a poem and send it along with a picture of my baby self to Fran. I saved both of our poems and our photos under the title of Love Thyself. We all know that both of these babies, one white with blue eyes and one black with brown eyes, should be loved and treated well by everyone. And we all know that one has been and is loved and treated well by society, and one has been and is hated and mistreated by society. It is the latter which inspires me to continue Fran's and Coming to the Table's work of trying to take America beyond the legacy of enslavement, which spells out table, with love and gratitude to Fran and all of you. Thank you.
Thank everyone for all the inspiring and beautiful statements that you've made about this magnificent, beautiful Fran, who's just broken my heart. And I'm just going to hang in there. Ever since, I don't know, many years ago, Steve and I at Pasadena's CTT began driving her to meetings. It was such a wonderful privilege to have that opportunity to talk back and forth every month for years. And we did a 5 for Fran, which is 5 focused minutes of prayer for 25 different people that we would send out every week. And she sometimes told me that also kept her alive. But her joy and her inner spirit was so powerful. I just want to stop and thank Barbara and Paul for their kindness and letting us know about her being in the hospital, so we could drive over there right away prior to her leaving, and I was able to kiss her hand goodbye. Anyway, ever since Fran left, 2 lovebirds have visited daily, Pablo and Paloma, to our bird bath and to drink from the waters there. I refresh it every day. And I just want to say that Fran, who had the greatest sense of humor of anyone I know, sent us Josh Johnson. I don't know if anyone has picked up on him, but he is magnificent as well, which is just perfect because she left him for us. And 3 days before she went into the hospital, we didn't know, but Steve bought tickets a live event of his at this is where Fran put her thumb on the button and they gave us our money back, which is such a gift. It's just a dumb little thing, but it's one of those things that's so Fran-like. So I just want to thank everyone for their beautiful contributions today. This is just got me on the edge of tears every minute, but I guess that's how it was. You know, Fran suffered so much, and yet she gave so much, and we're all so grateful. And she's here with us. She's here, and her lovebirds visit every single day.
Hi. Hi. I've known Fran since I was trying to place whether it was 1991 or 1992. Fran, I, and Roberta, who couldn't join us, met in trauma recovery. And Fran had multiple traumas. The one we were there for, I mean, Fran had been, traumatized as, I believe, the first kid in her school to be integrated, when the school was integrated, which was trauma enough. And then there was sexual abuse. And so we met in that group, in that setting. And we continued on the healing journey. Since, and I believe it was before the civil unrest that that she came to the group. I was already in the group. It was a therapeutic setting, specifically called Some People's Children. It's no longer around, but it was a godsend to me and to her as well. She was at the time working as the dialogue coach to Urkel in Family Matters. And was struggling, as we all were, to keep it together while being confronted with, in I believe both our cases, memories that had been not just suppressed but repressed, and then came to the surface. I'm in a startup, a CEO of an organization, and I'm dealing with all that. And she had an equal amount of demands placed on her. And so it went. And I was just delighted to see her in our group, primarily because she was from the East Coast and so was I. And she was also the first African American in our group, and I was equally pleased to see that, having come not long before that from New Orleans, and just and not feeling the same comfort I felt when I worked in the first Black mayoral administration there. I had a lot, I didn't have that many friends from that ethnicity here in Los Angeles. And so we continued on our journey, and her literary prowess just blew me away and continued to blow me away. I don't know how many books she's actually authored. I've lost count. But we had a lot of authors in common, and those authors, it turned out, while they might be known for science fiction, as you dig deeper, you discover they too had experienced tremendous childhood trauma. When we reconnect, and we'd stay connected, but I lived in the Valley, she lived in Beverlywood, or whatever the Beverlywood adjacent, and we stayed connected. And then to address her agoraphobia, she organized this group called the Scone Crow. Well, we didn't have a name initially, but she organized tea gatherings, and we would meet for a sugared up kind of luncheon every, I think it was every month or every couple of months, and that group stayed. I believe we started in 2001, and the participation kind of ebbed and flowed. Some people didn't continue, but Bonnie and Karen Sue, Roberta, there's a few others that couldn't be here, continued to stay together until just about a year ago. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah. Fran, everybody decided that we were complete. Fran specifically, and Karen up in Ohio. So it was then that we started to we didn't lose touch. I always got the emails. I always reached out and spoke with her. Roberta frequently went over to help her. And I will say that it has been a blessing and a privilege to have walked the healing journey with Fran, because she was one of the few people that I knew, as Karen Sue alluded to, that I could actually talk with about the kind of trauma that was experienced. This stuff does not heal. It heals. The energy of it falls away, but it's always with you, and it colors every aspect of my life. And I know it did to Fran too. And I honor her courage, her wisdom, and the dedication that she transmuted that experience into many different organizations that were that she either participated in or served as a leader of healing the planet. And so with that, I'm complete. Thank you.
I'm Renee, and I'm from Coming to the Table. And I met Fran when she came to our meeting for our Southern California meeting. It was in Pasadena. She came to us because she had a burning desire, an idea to create an actual slave ship, and she was looking for support for that. I think she thought if it could be experienced, it would create empathy for the horrors that our ancestors endured coming here. She quickly became a leader in our group. She was part of our steering committee, and then she left to start the Coming to the Table group in Santa Monica. She was active in our national groups, and she created some really amazing and memorable workshops for the national gatherings, which people still comment on. I was not in touch with Fran the last couple of years due to my own personal challenges in life, and I regret that. I was looking through some old emails, and I found a poem, the poem that Linda mentioned, that I'd like to share with you all about her experiences in life and her journey to heal herself. I groveled until my knees bled. I was a good girl. I spoke well. I grinned. I did everything they demanded, well trained by my abusers to give myself over to violence again and again, just for their permission to serve and protect. Those who could not love told me I was unlovable. All my life I believed them. There was no one to contradict them, so I lived self-hating, punishing my soft flesh, slamming my fists against my face, my breasts, my thighs, the walls, fighting not to cut myself. There were no sharp knives in my house until I found the picture of my infant self and fell in love. I stopped my attacks because I taught myself to say, "Don't hurt the baby." It was the beginning of tearing down the prison my mother had built around me, and the world then locked and guarded because my black skin made me an object to hate. I grabbed the baby, broke out and fell, fracturing all my bones on their lies. But I held on to her and refused to give them the satisfaction of my death. I cradled her, pulled myself up, and left behind everything they made me believe, knowing that I will not be broken again. And she put a date here. 9/3/2021. Fran was a beautiful, gracious woman, so intelligent and amazing. I'll miss her.
My partner, wife Shivani, and I knew Fran from way back in 1979. We're both musicians, and Fran was one of the great supporters of our music. In that era, Shivani and I were playing every Friday night at a metaphysical, non-denominational church called the Ohm Center in Bellflower, California. And Fran used to quite often go with us there, and we would play music for a guided meditation. And I was constantly writing songs because it was such an inspiring time. And we also knew her during a period of time, which was probably way before most of you. She also used to cook, not just for all of her friends and her, neighbors and family and everyone, but did it professionally. And she was always trying out new things. And she was so unbelievably self-critical. She would say, well, I've tried this new thing, but I think it's a little overcooked. It's a little undercooked. It might not be spiced right, whatever. And say, well, we'll try it. And everything she made, we loved. So we had this deal with her. If she ever made something that she thought was not good enough to submit to the place where they were selling her food, we would eat it and love it. So anyway, she was one of the largest supporters of our music. Back in the early 80s, we did a lot of instrumental meditation, new age music, and she was huge support for that. We love you, Fran. We'll love you forever.
This is so cool, being able to listen to everyone's stories, to see some folks I haven't seen in quite a while. And for anybody I'm putting into the chat a link to the guided meditation page, where there's about a half a dozen recordings of Fran. So anytime you need to listen to Fran's voice, she's got several guided meditations that are recorded on that link. And I remember when Lisa McMurray passed away. She was the founder of the Southern California group, and there was a discussion: are we going to keep going? Are we not? And there was, 6 or 8 people got together, and a bunch of them came to the 2016 National Gathering, including Fran, and got to be very good friends, just love her to death. And the thing that I take great comfort in is knowing that when she passed, it was peaceful, regardless of the circumstances and all of what she dealt with the last few years with health challenges and what have you. And one of the reasons I know that is this book that she recommended to me, Journey of Souls, that is this and its sequel are just so powerful about talking about the life between our lives, on both sides of the veil. And was just reading last night a chapter in the second book about soulmates, and I feel so connected to Fran. And we would hop on Zoom every month or two and just go on for hour and a half, and talking about dying and being okay with it. It's like the trees, the deer, the birds, us. We all come and we go throughout the seasons of our lives, and such a blessing to know her, and through her others, and just a real blessing. And to be with you all today, to be with people who love Fran, who connected with her very closely, and some less closely, however you describe it, but just a real treat. And there have been a lot of folks who've been central with coming to the table, like Fran, with starting local groups, starting an online local group, the books that she wrote, the national gatherings, the workshops that she did, that she led, the mindfulness meditations that she led, and always a commitment to truth, to justice, to love, and to peace. And just really grateful to have had the time to spend with her over these last many years, and look forward to checking back in with her when I get to the other side as well. And just want to thank all of you for being here with Fran, and shining her light
for us. So really good to be with you all. Thank you.
So Allison came over to me and she said, we're bookending this because both Allison and I were old people, if you will, in the coming to the table in South Pasadena edition. And Fran was one of the early members, founding members with me in that organization, Melissa. And so it would have been great to be the bookend, but I actually have to get back because I'm editing something, and so I need to leave a little bit. So it's interesting, all the words that people have shared already, and Melissa, you just said something in terms of this book. When I was driving over, I was thinking, who is Fran and what comes to mind to me? And not advanced soul, but old soul. And what, not old, right, in terms of age, although there's something about that may have influenced the oldness of her soul. And she was just born, right, with that oldness. Her history, when she was born, the things that she went through, the family that she was in, all of that informed the essence of who she was. And in the sense of old soul, like an old antique, like a classic antique that's unique and that doesn't necessarily like come to you, but is inviting you to come and sit, right? To come and experience and be with. And if you see that, if you take the time to go over and be in that presence, there's a wealth of comfort and just as somebody already said, listening. She was very calm and very solid and very strong in her feet because she had gone through years of building that.
Yes.
And just a lot of things that were going on. And so you could I just remember being in times just driving in the car in solitude actually, but just being with each other in that way. That I remember, this old soul that was my friend. And I'm a singer, so I'm just gonna do a little thing that she helped contribute to, and we need more of it. And so I'm gonna sing a bit of that song that says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hills enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to cross, enough to last till the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. No, not just for some, but for everyone. No, not just for some, but just for everyone.
I knew Fran through coming to the table as well. I think the first time I met her was in a gathering where she was leading a meditation. So I'm really happy to know that those meditations still exist online and can be returned to. And then we were in a writing group together, and that's where we really became friends. And we had a totally online friendship, which I know she had with many people. So it feels sort of appropriate to be in this virtual gathering right now. But we would exchange emails, and I've never been a great emailer, but somehow with Fran, I never wanted to stop chatting with her. She was so curious, just infinitely curious, and so just like tapped into the questions that mattered, and was such a safe space for me. Like, was just someone who really was just a good friend, and an elder who I really learned so much from. And her emails, the poems she would send, the art she would send, just the thoughts we would exchange. It always felt like nothing was off limits. We could really talk about anything. And she cared so much. Like, she cared about everyone, and she cared about everything. And she would check on me when I should have been checking on her. And yeah, I just really hope that I can grow into a heart as big as Fran's was, and continue to, do the healing work, the generational healing work that she was so committed to, and, just modeled so much patience and so much grace. And one thing she said in our writing group once, we were talking about anger, and I remember she said, you can't feel all of your emotions if you're sitting on one of them. Like, if you're sitting on your anger, you can't feel your joy, and I think about that a lot. And I think about just how fearless she was in accessing all parts of herself, and how she taught us how to do the same. And she would also always say, this is probably something that's said a lot in Coming to the Table, but she would say, coming to the table is easy, but staying at the table is hard. And that I think about a lot too. And in other spaces I'm in, when I want to leave or I want to give up, I think about, Fran saying that. So, Fran, I love you, and I'm so glad I got to be your friend. And I always thought we had more time, but I know you're still, here with us and listening and sending us your wisdom from wherever you are. So yeah, I'm really appreciative to be here with all of you, and to see all the people who loved her, who I didn't get to know. So thank you.